3 minutes on this. The oral questions and here. Motion under Rule 29 of the Rule of Procedure. There are a total of 3 members' motions for this meeting. First member's motion, Mr. Ronny TONG will move a motion under Rule 49(e)(2) of the Rights of Procedure to take note of 6 items of subsidiary legislation which were included in report number 7, 12, 13 of the House Committee laid on the table of this Council. According to the relevant debating procedure, I'll first call upon the Honorable Ronny TONG to move the motion. The debate on the motion will be divided into 3 sessions. The first session is to debate the Mediation Ordinance Commencement Notice. The second session is to debate the 3 items of subsidiary legislation in relation to the Banking Ordinance. And the third session is to debate the 2 items of subsidiary legislation in relation to the Telecommunications Ordinance. Each member, including the mover of the motion, may only speak once in each session and may speak for up to 15 minutes each time. In each session, I will first call upon the chairman of the subcommittee formed to scrutinize the relevant items of subsidiary legislation to speak, to be followed by other members. Finally, I'll call upon the relevant public officer to speak. The next debate session will start immediately after the relevant public officer has spoken in a debate session. The debate on this motion will come to a close after the public officer has spoken in the third debate session. The motion will not be put to the vote. I now call upon the Honorable Ronny TONG to move the motion. The Honorable Ronny TONG, President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I do this as the Deputy Chairman of the House Committee so that members can debate on the subsidiary legislation and instruments as contained in report number 7, 12 to 13 of the House Committee laid on the table of the Council today. Item number 1, Banking Capital Amendment Rule 2012. 2, Banking Specification of Multilateral Development Bank Amendment Notice 2012. Item 3, Banking Amendment Notice 2012, Commencement Notice 2012. Item 4, Telecommunications Determining Spectrum Utilization Fee by Auction Amendment Regulation 2012. Item 5, Telecommunications Designation of Frequency Bands subject to payment of spectrum utilization fees, Amendment Order 2012. And item 6, Mediation Ordinance, Commencement Notice. I now propose the question to, and that is that the motion moved by the Honorable Ronny TONG be passed. We now proceed to the first debate session, that is to debate the Mediation Ordinance, Commencement Notice. Members who wish to speak on this subsidiary legislation will please press the request to speak button. The Honorable Dennis Kwok.
In my capacity as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Mediation Ordinance, in brackets Commencement Notice, I report on the deliberations of the subcommittee. The subcommittee supports the enactment of the Mediation Ordinance to provide the legal framework for mediation in Hong Kong. The main concern of members is the readiness on the part of the government and the Hong Kong Mediation Accreditation Association Limited, Hong Kong MAO, for the commencement of the ordinance on 1st January 2013. The subcommittee notes that Hong Kong MAO was set up in August 2012 as a company limited by guarantee to serve as the premier non-statutory industry-led accreditation body. As informed by the chairman of Hong Kong MAO during the deliberations of the subcommittee, a lot of groundwork is still underway, such as setting up a secretariat and website, etc. Although it cannot be confirmed that Hong Kong MAO will be ready to perform its accreditation functions by 1st January 2013, both the Department of Justice and Hong Kong MAO have advised the commencement of the ordinance is unrelated to the operation of Hong Kong MAO. The commencement of the ordinance needs not be subject to the readiness of Hong Kong MAO. The subcommittee has sought information on other actions that are needed to be completed to pave the way for the commencement of the ordinance. According to the Department of Justice, some official forms and publications of the Judiciary and the Labour Department would require amendments as a consequence of the passage of the ordinance. Both the Judiciary and the Labour Department have confirmed that the revised forms and publications will be ready for use by 1st January 2013 when the ordinance commence and come into operation. On the training and accreditation of the mediators, Hong Kong Mau has been asked to develop plans to collaborate with the academic sector in formulating its standards for accrediting mediation training courses. The subcommittee considers it important for the administration and Hong Kong Mau to manage public expectation so that interested parties are aware that completion of a mediation course may not necessarily or automatically confer on them a qualification to practice as mediators accredited by Hong Kong Mau in Hong Kong. In response to members, the Department of Justice has advised that since the ordinance does not require mediators to be accredited by Hong Kong Mau, the commencement of the ordinance will not affect the current practice of mediators accredited by bodies other than Hong Kong Mau. The chairman of Hong Kong Mau has also assured the subcommittee that future participants of Hong Kong Mau will not be limited to a single profession and will comprise of individuals from different sectors such as legal, architecture, surveying, etc. The subcommittee does not object to the commencement notice, as the implementation of the ordinance and the future operation of Hong Kong Mau are important policy issues. Members have agreed that the panel on administration of justice and legal services should be invited to follow up on the related issues by inviting different bodies, interested parties to come to LegCo to give their views and to hear their deputations. Next, very briefly, President, I would like to give my personal views on the issue of mediation. We accept that mediation is indeed an important alternative form of dispute resolution in Hong Kong. It will increasingly become so as the society becomes more complicated, both legally and socially. However, it must be remembered that the right to access to courts is a fundamental right guaranteed under the Basic Law, and it is the right of every Hong Kong citizen to bring a dispute to court for resolution. This matter must be borne in mind while we developed the mediation as an important alternative dispute resolution regime. However, the administration must be reminded that the access to court must be supported by adequate resources provided to judges and the judiciary, and that includes remuneration and adequate support for members of the judiciary to perform their functions as judges. And also, access to court must be provided through adequate legal aid, that the current coverability under the legal aid system, including the supplemental legal aid system, are wholly inadequate, and that members of society, including those in the middle classes, are heavily left out of the current legal aid regime, and the situation is far from satisfactory. With this note, the subcommittee supports the commencement notice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sau-lan 議員。
謝代主席。
Mr. To, thank you, Mr. Deputy. This piece of subsidiary legislation is a commencement notice of the mediation ordinance. The ordinance was enacted at the end of last session, and that is the introduction of mediation to resolve dispute so as to reduce the cost of litigation. In scrutinizing the principal ordinance, members have expressed a concern with regard to the conditions for becoming a mediator. Would that be an other legal professional identity, and will that rule out the possibility of seeking the settlement of disputes through social workers and other professionals? Therefore, Ms. Margaret Ng and other members in the last term urged the administration not to repeat the mistakes with regard to regulating traditional Chinese medicine. Now, in regulating traditional Chinese medicine, the regulation has all along has included many exclusion factors. We hope that it's really a pity. Now, in looking at the commencement date and as to whether it is appropriate, concerned whether there is any uniform standard for accreditation of mediators, but there is none. The commencement date is only gives protection to the mediators, the keeping of confidential information. And it's also related to whether there are adequate suitable forms and publication of the government departments. But the implementation of the ordinance is far more than that. Now, apart from having the regulatory body and also the provision of training courses of mediators, we have also noticed that there are tertiary education institutions providing similar training courses. We are concerned whether graduates from these courses have got the recognition of the Hong Kong Mau, and those who enroll in these courses have the legitimate expectations that they should be qualified for practice. But some courses claim to be professional courses in which people were studying halfway through. The organizers told the participants of the courses that they would not be given any professional qualification. Now, there must be communication between the course providers and also the Hong Kong Mau. Otherwise, those who study in those courses will be sacrificed. They pay the course of studying. They pay the money for studying the course, and yet they will not be given any qualification. I think the Hong Kong Mau, I think there should be communication between Hong Kong Mau and the education providers. And if the present lack of education, lack of communication is not desirable. Now, the legal representative of one side can reject the proposed mediator proposed by the other side. Now, mediation is to deal with disputes in a less contentious situation. But the cases showed that there were legal representatives when they wanted mediation. Their legal representative rejected the mediator proposed by the other side. Now, the starting point of mediation is to conduct the resolution of dispute in a more amiable manner. And yet, because of that situation, the cost of dispute resolution has increased as a result, because one side rejects the proposed mediator by the other side. In dealing with the professional qualification of mediator, the administration has to be very careful. There shouldn't be a kind of monopoly. People can therefore avoid high legal costs. People don't need to resolve disputes only through the court in a contentious manner. It shouldn't be a zero-sum game. I hope that the Hong Kong Mail and the administration will, as soon as possible, work hard towards achieving the objective or goal of the ordinance.
主席，我諗大家都會記得咧，喺雷曼事件嘅時候呢，就好多嘅苦主，佢哋呢就俾唔起律師費，又要同龐大嘅集團，包括銀行呢。
There were many victims who had to pay hefty legal costs, and they were also very frustrated because they had to face a giant in court. As we all know, legal costs in Hong Kong are very high, and many and the middle class are excluded from the legal aid regime, and therefore they may hesitate to seek redress in court. Because of this, I've always encouraged the development of mediation in Hong Kong. Mediation, arbitration, and litigation, I'm sure more and more people in Hong Kong now know that a litigation may end up with astronomical costs. Yes, arbitration is another alternative, and it can give you a one-off binding decision, whereas for mediation, it is a voluntary process entered into by both parties so that they can come to an agreement in a relatively harmonious manner, and there can be protection to the reputation of both parties. I've helped to mediate in many marital cases, and there have been unexpected advantages. And in the process of mediation, the parties even made up and decided not to separate. So it all depends on the competence of the mediators. The construction or engineering sector also attaches a lot of significance to mediation. This is something that cannot be done by the legal sector alone. We need the cooperation of many professions so that we can be successful. Well, for the Lehman Brothers incident, well, I was in the same select committee with the deputy here, and after 4 years of hard work, we finally have a financial dispute resolution center. I hope that mediation can really be a means of dispute resolution in the community. I think for legislators, we all know that the most common dispute in society is within owners incorporation. I have seen cases where families broke up and people lost their life savings in such disputes. So when we deal with disputes involving OCs, I hope we can expand the influence and the use of mediation. I hope that while we're debating this notice, I'd like to advocate for the use of mediation in OC-related disputes. Of course, there are disputes with nothing at all, and in tenement buildings, when the OC and landlords go to court, there can be many difficulties. For instance, in a building, the majority landowner is not allowed to turn on the elevators or escalators, so people with disabilities and expecting mothers have a lot of hardship. I think mediation can be used to handle ordinary OC-related disputes, and also disputes involving properties. Sometimes property owners are in a plight. They are afraid of starting a legal action. Even for us, we hesitate to advise them to start litigation, because if the other party wins, then if costs are awarded to the other party, then the cost can be very high. However, if we use mediation, we can avoid a lot of legal costs, and I think we should encourage this. In the training of mediators and promotion of mediation, I am with all other legislators here. We want the whole mechanism to be a success. Let's hope that it will not be like the case of traditional medical practitioners, because many experienced mediators may feel that they are being excluded. Well, we should try to be inclusive and accommodating. Experienced mediator training bodies, and even legal schools, law schools in universities are experienced in training mediators. And in the engineering sector, there have been courses on offer for a long time for mediators. We should raise their standards. Of course, we should not sacrifice quality. Otherwise, in future, people don't know who are the really qualified and competent mediators. So we should publicize mediation to members of the public. Secondly, we must have basic standards for mediators to attain. We should not just open the floodgate, and it should not be like tuition schools where everyone is entitled to open one. So there must be standards for accreditation. In the past 4 years, we've worked very hard with the government and also the stakeholders and interested parties trying to achieve this breakthrough. I hope we can put mediation to good use, and we must publicize mediation to society so that people who are facing everyday disputes and who feel that they have no way out can go for mediation. Thank you.
Mr. Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I support the commencement notice of the mediation ordinance. My speech is very simple. I just want to thank the former Secretary of Justice, Mr. Wong Yan-long, for his hard work on drawing up this mediation ordinance. Now, at the beginning, when Mr. Wong Yan-long took office, he came to the relevant panel. At that time, I wasn't a member of the AJLS panel. Now, when the Council discussed the budget, I reflected the grievances encountered by small owners in various legal disputes with the owners' corporations. I urged the administration to enact the mediation ordinance. Mr. Wong attached importance to the view of the and the opinions of the people, and he put in a lot of effort on drawing up the mediation bill. At the end of last session, the Council enacted the bill into law, and today we are here to pass the commencement notice. I hope that the present Secretary for Justice will step up efforts on publicizing the commencement of the mediation ordinance, and also publicize the details of the mediation ordinance so that the owners' corporations and owners can make use of the ordinance to resolve their disputes. I also hope that the Secretary will, after the implementation of the bill, of the ordinance, after about a year of the implementation of the ordinance, will conduct a review so as to benefit the people of Hong Kong. Does any member wish to speak? If not, then members have already spoken in this session. I now call upon the Secretary for Justice to speak. The debate will come to a close after the Secretary has spoken. Secretary of Justice. Thank you, Mr. President. The Council passed the mediation ordinance in June this year. In October, according to the power vested in me, I designate that the commencement date of the ordinance is the 1st of January 2013. The notice is called the commencement notice, gazetted on the 19th of October 2012. The House Committee held on the 26th of October agreed to form a subcommittee to study the commencement notice. And then on the 6th of November and also 14th of November, the committee had 2 meetings. I thank members for their views. The subcommittee supports the enactment of the ordinance. This is to provide a legal framework for mediation in Hong Kong. It's a milestone. It signifies the use of mediation to deal with disputes and it also strengthens Hong Kong as an international center for resolution of disputes. The subcommittee has no dispute towards the commencement date and also the commencement notice. Members expressed some views concerning the Hong Kong Mediation Accreditation Association Limited. We understand their views. The Hong Kong MAO is formed by an industry-led accreditation. Is an industry-led accreditation body. It was formed in August. The chairman of the association, Mr. John Budge, attended the second meeting of the subcommittee and briefed members on the operation of the Hong Kong MAO and answered members' questions. Let me stress that the Hong Kong MAO is an independent body set up by the industry itself. It is now studying studying matters relevant to the accreditation of mediators. It includes the procedures and policies for accreditation mediators. It also sets standards for training of mediators. The administration will continue to monitor the accreditation and training of mediators in Hong Kong, and we will also keep an eye on future development. We are waiting for the Hong Kong MAO to become the primary overarching accreditation body, and when it has a substantial status, we may consider turning it into a statutory body. Let me briefly respond to the views given by members earlier. But before I do so, let me point out that there is a process for promoting mediation. Qualification is a very important point, and because of this, that is the setting up of the Hong Kong MAO. Just now, Mr. Kwok said that one shouldn't neglect the rights given to people to have access to court to seek justice. We have taken note of this point fully, and in the work of the mediation task force, we did pay attention to that. As for other aspects, say for example resources of the judiciary and also resources for legal aid, the administration will continue to pay attention to that. Some members suggested there should not be any repetition of the mistakes of the regulation of TCM in regulating mediators. My understanding of the Hong Kong MAO is that apart from lawyers, there are other professionals who have received training and who have passed examinations can become mediators, accredited mediators. There is no requirement that the mediator must be a lawyer. And among mediators, accredited mediators, there are many other professionals such as doctors, accountants, and other professionals. Mr. Leung and Madam Leung and Mr. Wong mentioned community mediation, and Madam Leung mentioned the dispute between owners and owners corporations, and she hoped that that could be resolved by mediation. We fully understand the need in this area. Just now, we have set up a steering committee on mediation, and one of our emphases is on resolution of disputes within the community, and we hope that such disputes could be resolved through mediation. Community disputes include disputes between OCs and owners, and we hope that it will also cover the issue of water leakage, which is very common. in the buildings in Hong Kong. We hope that through mediation, such problems can be resolved. And I also agree with Mr. Wong. There's a need to fully to promote mediation in the community. And under the steering committee, there will be a subgroup which is responsible for publicity and promotion. We will make further arrangements to step up publicity through the media. I will organize seminars and talks to promote that. And we also would like to work through the district council, or district councils. With regard to mediation, we've already gained substantial grounds, and mediation has already taken root in Hong Kong. With regard to the implementation of the mediation ordinance, the administration is ready. With the implementation of the ordinance, we'll work with the judiciary, government departments, and relevant stakeholders to promote the use of mediation widely in Hong Kong, and will report to the AJLS panel on the implementation of mediation in Hong Kong. With these remarks, thank you, Mr. President.
We now proceed to the second debate session, that is to debate the 3 items of subsidiary legislation in relation to the banking ordinance. Members who wish to speak on these 3 items of subsidiary legislation will please press the request to speak button. Mr. Leung-sing. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. As Chairman of the Subcommittee on Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2012, Banking Specification of Multilateral Development Bank Amendment Notice 2012, and Banking Amendment Ordinance 2012, Commencement Notice 2012, I now report to this Council the scrutiny work of the Subcommittee. The purpose of the 3 items of subsidiary legislation is to provide for the first phase implementation by local authorized institutions, mainly banks, of the revised regulatory capital standards known as Basel III, promulgated by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, that is the Basel Committee, on the 1st of January 2013. The subcommittee supports the 3 items of subsidiary legislation, which are designed to increase the level, quality, and transparency of banks' capital base, as well as the risk coverage of the capital framework, to further strengthen the ability of banks and the banking system to withstand risks so as to cope with impacts resulting from pressure on the financial and economic systems, thus reducing the risks of banking crises spilling over to the real economy. Members are concerned about the cost impact on the banking sector, whether it will be necessary for banks to raise capital in order to fulfill the requirements, and whether the AIs will become more prudent in lending, which may cause difficulty for the small and medium enterprises and members of the public in obtaining credit. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority advised that implementation of Basel III will not increase the cost for banks because their capital adequacy ratio has been maintained at a very high level. Banks should have no difficulty in fulfilling the new capital requirements, and large-scale capital-raising activities are not envisaged. While a number of authorized institutions may need to adjust their capital mixes in response to the new ratios, no problem is envisaged for such AIs in the process. As regards the impact on AIs lending, the HKMA pointed out that given that AIs in Hong Kong have been well capitalized, with the capital adequacy ratio averaging 15.9% at the end of June 2012, far higher than the minimum requirement of 8%, implementation of the new minimum capital adequacy ratios should not adversely affect AIs lending to SMEs, and hence the borrowing cost for the general business, as well as members of the public. On the other hand, implementation of the Basel III requirements will further enhance the resilience of AIs, enabling them to continue lending during periods of economic downturn. The subcommittee noted that the administration had, under Section 97C of the Banking Ordinance, consulted the Financial Secretary, the Banking Advisory Committee, the BAC, the Deposit-Taking Companies Advisory Committee, DTCAC, the Hong Kong Association of Banks, and the DTC Association of the proposed changes to the banking capital rules. The banking sector indicated support for the direction of the amendments. Their views have been taken into account in finalizing the rules. Given that the Basel III standards are global standards, members inquired about the differences, if any, between Basel III and the capital amendment rules. The HKMA advised that all jurisdictions need to comply with the technical standards and rules in Basel III. However, as the Basel III capital framework sets the minimum standards, the Basel Committee has allowed domestic supervisors to adopt adjustments or make modifications to the standards to address their specific circumstances, domestic concerns, and prudential issues. The major modifications made in the capital amendment rules relate to 4 major areas, including the treatment of unrealized gains on property revaluation. The administration briefed members on those 4 areas of modifications and the reasons for introducing them, and noted that the modifications are necessary to cater to the unique circumstances of the AIs in Hong Kong, and the banking sector had been consulted on the issues involved. As the European Union, the EU, and the United States may experience some delay in the implementation of the first phase of Basel III, some members were concerned that implementing Basel III on the 1st of January 2013 may cause competitive disadvantage to AIs in Hong Kong, and inquired whether HKMA would consider introducing flexibility in the implementation timetable in Hong Kong. The administration reiterated that Basel III could build a better capitalized and more resilient banking system for Hong Kong, and the Basel Committee was determined to implement the first phase of Basel III standards on the 1st of January 2013. Hence, Hong Kong, as a major international financial center, needs to align with the international implementation timetable. The HKMA pointed out that many Asian jurisdictions, like Australia, the mainland, India, Japan, and Singapore, had already issued their final rules. Some EU regions, including the UK and Germany, have taken preparatory action. The US has also conducted stress tests similar to those in Basel III for large banks and banking holding companies. Besides, the largest related institutions in the US are now undergoing significant recapitalization. The subcommittee consulted the HCAP on the implementation timetable for Hong Kong. Members noted that the HCAP considered it necessary to create a level regulatory playing field and to implement the Basel III proposals globally. The HCAP observed that while the timetable for the implementation of Basel III standards would vary across jurisdictions, the major jurisdictions across the globe are heading in the same direction over the longer term. By adopting Basel III standards from the 1st of January 2013, Hong Kong will will reinforce its position as a leading financial center, firstly by showing leadership in the implementation of the new standards, and also by giving AIs clarity and stability with regard to the regulatory environment and their capital requirements. The subcommittee urged the administration to work closely with the banking sector to monitor Basel III implementation developments in other jurisdictions. Mr. President, the following is my personal views. From my subcommittee's report just now, members can see that in the consultation process for the 3 items of subsidiary legislation, there was due communication with the industry and has answered industry's concerns in the process. To sum up, the industry in general agree that Hong Kong as an international financial center should adopt globally recognized capital standards, and the direction was correct. However, it's still worthwhile to mention that I had contacted some local banks, and they were concerned about a fair competition environment. That is, if it is necessary for Hong Kong to be among the first batch of jurisdictions to implement the new standards. According to the Hong Kong MA, our neighboring jurisdictions, including Australia, Singapore, India, and mainland China, will all implement the new standards on the 1st of January, and Japan in March next year. Therefore, if Hong Kong is to implement the new standards on the 1st of January, there shouldn't be any adverse impact in terms of external competitiveness. At present, the overall capital adequacy is sufficient for the AIs of Hong Kong, but for small and medium banks, they are weaker than the large banks financially and technically. Therefore, I suggest that the administration should be concerned about fair competition technically for small and medium banks. As Basel III will be implemented in phase, and a whole series of new standards will be launched, including financial disclosure. Therefore, apart from large banks, I hope that the administration can consult small and medium banks and consider their views, conduct more communication, and offer them assistance. In conclusion, I would like to urge this Council to support the 3 items of subsidiary legislation, and I'd like to thank the Secretariat and officials for their cooperation. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Members have already spoken in this session. I now call upon the Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury to speak. This debate session will come to a close after the Secretary has spoken. Secretary. Mr. Deputy, in February this year, this Council passed the Banking Amendment Ordinance 2012 to establish a framework for the implementation in Hong Kong of the new regulatory capital and liquidity standards promulgated by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which are internationally known as Basel III. As an international financial center and a member of the Basel Committee, Hong Kong is obliged to follow the implementation timetable, which was agreed internationally, in order to ensure that the capital framework for banks in Hong Kong is on par with the international standards. The aim of the 3 pieces of subsidiary legislation, as set out in this motion, is to enable Hong Kong to implement the first phase of the new Basel III regulatory capital standards from 1st January next year, in accordance with the transitional timeline specified by the committee. Here, I would like to express my gratitude to the chairman, Mr. Leung-sing, as well as the 5 other members of the subcommittee who participated in the scrutiny of these 3 important pieces of subsidiary legislation, noting that they are highly technical in content. The administration welcomes the subcommittee's support for the subsidiary legislation. Over the past years, the HKMA, under
took extensive consultation with the local banking industry on the detailed proposals contained in the subsidiary legislation. In particular, prior to finalizing the Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2012, the MA had released the amendment rules in a draft form to consult the Financial Secretary, the Banking Advisory Committee, the Deposit-Taking Companies Advisory Committee, the Hong Kong Association of Banks, and the DTC Association in accordance with Section 97C of the Banking Ordinance. I would like to, on this occasion, give thanks to the banking industry for their active involvement in the process to ensure that the subsidiary legislation will be effectively implemented in Hong Kong. Mr. Deputy, given their strong capital positions, banks in Hong Kong are already well placed to adopt the Basel III standards from 1st January next year. As at the end of September this year, the average capital adequacy ratio of local authorized institutions was 16.1%, and their average Tier 1 capital ratio 13.3%, with common equity accounting for approximately 90% of their Tier 1 capital. Based on HKMA's latest assessment, the strong capital position of the local authorized institutions should enable them to meet the strengthened capital requirements without much difficulty. I've also noted from the submission provided by the Hong Kong Association of Banks to the subcommittee that Hong Kong's banking industry is already well prepared to comply with the capital requirements set out in the subsidiary legislation. It has recently been reported that though the US and EU are already in the final stage of implementing Basel III, they appear unable to implement the relevant capital standards in time from 1st January next year. I recognize that the subcommittee has discussed whether the competitiveness of Hong Kong's banking industry might be affected if Hong Kong would implement the capital standards timely as planned. I would like to briefly speak on this. First of all, I wish to point out that Basel III is designed to enhance the resilience of banks and the banking system. Implementing Basel III in Hong Kong will raise the level, quality and transparency of banks' capital base, broaden the risk capture of the capital framework, and strengthen banks' risk management practices. This will result in the local banking system becoming more stable, with a greater ability to weather any possible future shock to the global markets. This view is broadly shared by the Hong Kong's banking industry. As such, our meeting the Basel III international standards should not only enhance the ability of the Hong Kong banking system to absorb shocks, but should also reinforce the confidence of investors and depositors in our banks. Meanwhile, we notice that as in Hong Kong, jurisdictions like the mainland of China, Switzerland, Australia, India, and Singapore have made known their intention to implement the Basel III standards from 1st January next year. Japan has decided that its implementation will take effect from the end of March next year in order to coincide with the fiscal year cycle for banks in Japan. We also understand that regulators in the US and EU have in fact already made significant efforts to recapitalize their banks in the aftermath of the crisis, using comprehensive stress testing programs to set the levels of capital which must be maintained so that their larger banks can weather the financial turbulences built into the stress testing scenarios. We are hoping that the US and EU can complete the relevant rulemaking process expeditiously in order to implement the Basel III requirements as early as possible. President, the Financial Stability Board, together with the G20 finance ministers and the central bank governors, have recently reaffirmed the calls for a full, timely and effective implementation of the Basel standards. We understand that the Basel Committee is itself working to ensure the timely and consistent implementation of Basel III through a vigorous peer review process, which examines in detail the consistency of the rules in member jurisdictions against the Basel III text. upon commencement of the subsidiary legislation set out in this motion from 1st of January next year, the HKMA will continue to work closely with the local banking industry to monitor the capital positions of our banks and to keep in view further development in the implementation of Basel III in other major jurisdictions in order to assess the impact of Basel III. Mr. Deputy, I'm grateful to the subcommittee for its support for the Basel III-related subsidiary legislation set out in this motion with a view to enhancing the safety and soundness of the banking system. This will in turn help reinforce the status of Hong Kong as an international financial center. Thank you.
We now proceed to the third debate session, that is, to debate the two items of subsidiary legislation in relation to the Telecommunications Ordinance. Member who wish to speak on these two items of subsidiary legislation will please press the request to speak button. Mr. Charles Peter Moore. As chairman of the Subcommittee on Telecommunications determining spectrum utilization fees by auction, Amendment Regulation 2012 and Telecommunications designation of frequency band subject to payment of spectrum utilization fee Amendment Order 2012, I would like to report on the deliberation of subcommittee. The amendment order aims at designating an additional frequency band, i.e. 2635 to 2660 MHz, for which the use of spectrum is subject to the payment of SUF. The amendment regulation provides that the method of determining the SUF is by auction. The subcommittee has held one meeting with the administration to examine the subsidiary legislation and related issues. Members generally support the amendment order and the amendment regulations. Members note that the validity period of the radio spectrum assignment will last for 15 years, and some members consider that the administration should consult the trade and the public at large on the overall policy so that suitable adjustment can be made in certain aspects, such as the right of renewal of any license or spectrum assignment. The administration has responded that it will take into account members' views and the views previously gathered when it starts the second round of public consultation. Members have noted that in accordance with the report of the consultancy study commissioned by the previous Telecommunications Authority, that spectrum trading was not active in Hong Kong, although demand from the trade for radio spectrum was strong, and that spectrum rights owners were not keen to transfer the precious resource to others. The administration therefore does not consider the issue of radio spectrum trading a matter of priority to be addressed. Some members are of the view that the consultancy report on the issue should be made public to provide transparency in the administration's policy. And even if the policy cannot be published, there should be a statement issued by the administration in relation to the consultancy report. The administration has decided to brief the ITP panel on this subject later. Here are my personal views. Although members of the subcommittee in relation to the determination of SUF by auction has expressed support, but we are concerned about the policy. In 2011, the four mobile operators were given the spectrum, that is 1,900 to 2,200 MHz. These would come to an end in October 2016. There was the first round of consultation by the CA, and there will be a second round to follow. The sector is concerned about the service provision for millions of users and the possible impact that such an exercise may bring. As I pointed out, the administration would embark or before the start of the second round of consultation, views of subcommittee members and views from the public will be considered. I hope this will be done by the administration, and then views expressed so far will be reflected in the option arising from the second consultation. I hope the Bureau that is the Economic and Commerce and Economic Development, and the CA would understand that the auction and the destination of spectrum are two different things, because otherwise service may be disrupted, or the efficiency of the market may be affected. Innovation may also be affected. In the first round of consultation, the authority proposed three options. First, to allow existing operators to have the priority to use the spectrum after the expiry. Second, take back all spectrums for the fresh auctions. Or thirdly, a mix of the two. Some will be given to existing operators, while the rest will be put up for auction. According to CA, operators should understand that there's no expectation that after the expiry period of the relevant period, they can have an expectation to get the same afterwards. This, of course, will give the Bureau a lot of flexibility. Actually, there are 5 objectives to be served by assigning such spectrum. First, continuity of service provision. Second, efficient utilization of spectrum. Third, effective competition. Fifth, promotion of investment, and also to the promotion of mobile services. We have one of the highest penetration rates in the world. It's over 200%. The operators have no spare capacity in terms of spectrum. And even if you take back some of the spectrums that they are assigned, that is the third or the second or third options. If you take back the spectrum being used by their clients, the service or quality of service may suffer, and they may have to reassign the numbers. This will affect consumer to a great extent, and existing operators do not know whether they can get the spectrum through fresh auctions, and that is a service plan starting October 2016 may not be possible, and that would also affect investment. They will not be able to take on more customers. In Australia, in 2010, when the authorities reassigned 2G and 3G spectrums to existing operators, they did the same. In UK, in 2011, the 3G spectrums were given or assigned to operators for good. In 1992, in Hong Kong, we switched from analog to digital, and in 2005 and 2006, some 2G spectrum, GSM 900 and 1800 megahertz expired. At that time, the spectrums were reassigned to the same operators. This practice can serve all the 5 objectives: continuity of service, effective utilization, effective competition, encourage investment, and promotion of innovative services. If this time, in relation to 3G, the spectrum will be taken back for fresh auctions, then 4 of the 5 objectives might not be achieved or made impossible. You may increase competition, but maybe not effective competition. There may be excessive competition instead. So I hope in the next round of consultation, the CA would retain the first option, and that is to allow the existing operators to have priority to use the same spectrums. This is the position adopted by those companies in the first round of operation, including existing 3G operators and mobile telecommunications providers. If the CA does not keep this first option, then I'm afraid the consultation exercise is a fake one. Even if you allow existing operators to use the same spectrums, it doesn't mean that there will be no new entrant to the market. If we, early next year, we are going to auction 50 megahertz of service bands. There was a new operator who has been given the right to use 2,300 megahertz spectrum. If you go for a fresh auction, the service may not be commenced right away. If you do this for existing operators, there will be continuity. So existing operators will be more effective in ensuring continuity. Another issue is spectrum trading. If we allow trading, there's room to improve the efficiency of using the spectrum. According to the CA, existing operators don't have any surplus spectrum for trading, and no one is keen to trade. And therefore, the administration will not consider trading, radio spectrum trading, as a matter of priority. I've consulted all the mobile service operators. Most of them, or all of them, are in favor of allowing trading. It seems that the administration is not fully aware of the market operators' views. Lastly, the subcommittee would like to have the consultancy report commissioned by the former Telecommunications Authority be published. We have written to the Bureau. We issued a letter a month ago for the public to be made public. We haven't received a reply. We would like to get a reply very soon. President, we support the amendments, but we must carefully handle the renewal of license of 3G operators and the holders of such spectrum, because we're not just talking about the interests of these operators, but millions of mobile telecommunication service users. The government should safeguard their interests. On this note, I would like to thank the colleagues from the CA and the Economic Development and Commerce Bureau. Does any other member wish to speak?
Mr. Chung-kai, in the deliberation of the subcommittee, I asked some questions on spectrum trading. The answer from the administration is contradictory. They said there is no such demand and there is no active trading. When in fact there is no platform or policy to enable trading. And even if there is such a platform, the room for trading is limited because there is limited supply. As Mr. Mok said, there are millions of users in Hong Kong. I think he's underestimated it. It's tens of millions. We have 7 million people, and we're talking about 14 million people or 15 million people, because some people may have more than one mobile phone, and or companies may assign more than one mobile phones or SIM card to their staff, and there is not enough spectrum for assignment. And during the 3G auction, the administration was vigorous in their lobbying, and as to whether it's going to be auctioning or assignment. And in the end, the administration chose auction, and they have, in the past decade or so, generated tens of billions of dollars. When the 15-year license expires, the administration should consider how they should deal with renewal at the beginning. When there was an auction of 2635 to 2660 megahertz band, well, in a lot of the spectrum license will expire in the coming few years. I think there should be some consistency in the policy. Last week in the motion debate, I proposed that the spectrum for television service should be auctioned, and the administration objected to that. So you see there are contradictions in the two policies. When it comes to television service, why can't the spectrum be auctioned? If it's auctioned, and if a new operator takes it up, the impact on users will be minimum, because you just see a different program from television. It's just that it's produced by a different station. So to the audience, there is not much change, but not the same. But it's not the same when it comes to mobile phone services. A lot of mobile phone users, when they subscribe the service, they take out contract of 24 months. So with less than 2 years remaining, are you asking the existing operators not to attract customers? What if they can't successfully bid the spectrum? Are you going to refund them? Deputy President, you are a barrister, so you may share your view with us. So is it the case that they can't? What if there is no transitional arrangement? They can't successfully move on to the new renewal. There will be a huge impact. Well, we're not asking for all the spectrum to be auctioned. They say for example, each operator will take out 5 megahertz for auction. So altogether, there will be 20 megahertz from the few operators here. They are paired. So it's one for uplink, the other one for downlink. What does that mean? When it's expired? Well, actually, it's not 3 years. It's not to 2016. It's about 2014 when the arrangements will have to be in place. Otherwise, how can you get new customers? Because normally a contract is 24 months. So before 24 months in advance, there should be some certainty. What about a hybrid model? Say, let you keep 80% and 20% of the spectrum will be taken out for auction. That is one of the ways. You have to explore it. The problem facing Hong Kong is that in a lot of places, well, perhaps Secretary, you seldom take the MTR, but we do. When it comes to busy stations, say between Central and Admiralty, when it's after office hours, there are blind spots. You can't use 3G because of the overutilization. There are about 60 to 70% utilization by mobile phone, and in a year or two it will rise to 7 to 80%. So there is a great demand. So for the existing operators, they can maybe release some of the spectrum for auction. The administration was eager in doing the consultation for auction. But on the other hand, they don't incline to do so when it comes to television service. So when there is no impact on the users, you don't want to do auction. Whereas when there is an impact on users, you want an auction. So what is your stance? Auction itself is fair. Say, for example, the administration say that the 30 megahertz for LTE, that is 4G long-term evolution, will be put in place. So you have money, whether you're AT&T or Telstra. If they so wish and if they have sufficient funding, they can enter the market because it's an open and free market, open to competition. I strongly support that. What about television? Television service. Last week, the administration said that there won't be any auction for television service. But they say yes to this. It's not just an auction. They want to take back spectrum being used at the moment for auction. Is it the case that there are contradicting policy in the two different markets? In reviewing the policy, have they considered the impact on users? I'm not talking about operators. I'm talking about the general public, the subscribers. If the spectrum has to be taken out for auction, and when new operators is not in place yet, the old operators will already have to surrender the spectrum. And I want to talk about spectrum trading. My stance as to whether it can be done or where it should be done is not very clear. But I asked the administration about their relevant policy, but they don't have a clear policy. They have a report but they are reluctant to disclose it. They say, well, the demand is low. And when other operators talk, they say there is demand. We would like that to happen. The administration should, in this regard, have a clear policy in place to specify whether trading is allowed, whether the SUF will have to be paid, and whether a certain part will be taken out by the administration, and whether I can rent it. So apart from buying it off, can I rent it? That is, by that I mean to sublet it. Say, I just rent a few megahertz. Well, the transaction is a purchase of 15 years. But can you maybe rent it out to others for, say, 3 years? To lease it out? At least they should have a clear answer in this regard. They have consultation. They should also ask people whether there should be any spectrum trading or leasing. At least there should be some consultation. I so submit to support the auction of the 30 megahertz.
Does any other member wish to speak?
Well, members have already spoken in this session. I now call upon the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development to speak. The debate on this motion will come to a close after the Secretary has spoken. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. First of all, I thank the Chairman of the Subcommittee and its members for their detailed deliberation on the two subsidiary legislations and the relevant issues. I thank the two members for speaking just now, and I will give a brief answer. Recently, there has been rapid growth for mobile service. In August this year, the total utilization was 63 over. It was a large volume. The OFCA, Office of the Communication Authority, will put out to auction 50 megahertz. Carrier licensees can, through this, provide 4G services or Wi-Fi service. In relation to the 50 megahertz for auction, on this occasion, it will be open to all interested parties, including existing mobile networks operators and new operators. The spectrum is sufficient for a new operator to build up a new network in Hong Kong, and existing operators can, through successful bidding of the megahertz, to expand its service and improve its service to meet needs in the market. We are aware that even if there are spectrum trading, in the relevant countries, the trading is not active. And when we consulted the trade, we found that although there is a great demand for spectrum licensees are not keen to transfer such precious resources to others. The consultant engaged by the former OFTA compiled a report. Since the report contains sensitive information, we are seriously considering it. And in due course, we will give a written reply. What I'd like to emphasize is that when we consider the relevant factors and when we know about the situation in the market, if there is sufficient justification to promote spectrum trading, we will consult the trade and the public. We will also consult the panel on ITB, Information Technology and Broadcasting. A member mentioned about the expiry of 3G services and the relevant arrangements. The first round of consultation, as Mr. Mok said, ended in July this year. We're now collating the views received. And at the end of this year or early next year, we will issue the second consultation paper. In relation to arrangements after the expiry of 3G services, we will consult the public and the trade. And we will also relay the relevant information to the ITBP. In 2007, in relation to the spectrum release plan, it was clearly pointed out that during the period for radio spectrum assignment, there won't be any automatic renewal or priority given to existing spectrum licensees, and they should not have any reasonable expectation that they will be given to them. Our principle is that when there is competitive demand on spectrum, unless there is overriding public policy considerations, we incline to have a market-based approach to assign spectrum. The subcommittee has scrutinized the two subsidiary legislation. The relevant regulation will come into operation this Friday. The OFCA will release information on the auction, the memorandum of shortly. According to our work plan, we estimate that the auction will take place in the first quarter of 2013. In accordance with Rule 49E(9) of the Rules of Procedure, I shall not put any question on the motion.
The second and the third members' motions. These are two motion debates with no legislative effect. I have accepted the recommendations of the House Committee. That is, the movers of motions each may speak, including reply, for up to 15 minutes, and other members each may speak for up to 7 minutes. The mover of the second motion has another 5 minutes to speak on the amendments. And the movers of amendments to that motion each may speak for up to 10 minutes. I am obliged to direct any member speaking in excess of the specified time to discontinue. Second member's motion.